voice that told you you can't. Every shadow tried to block your chance, but you got dreams, a fire, a plan. It's time to lead, time to stand. Stand tall, no chains can hold you. Your heart's alive, the truth will show through. No turning back, it's your hour. This is your time to take back your power. Step into your power, don't look away. This is your rise, your brand new day. You're unstoppable, unshakable. Nothing can break your soul today. Step into your power, let the world see the strongest version of you and me. Step into your power, take your space. You're enough, you're bold, you're full of grace.
Good morning, everybody. Episode 3 of season 1, SoulSpectives. So happy you're here. Thank you so much. We're getting so many views and so much awesome feedback. So I'm so happy to be here today with you. And today I'm going to be bringing a little bit of a bridge. So the first episode was about relationship and orientation and how important that is to recognize that we're in relationship with absolutely everything, not just our partners, not just friends, but we're in relationship with life. We're in relationship with nature. We're in relationship with money. We're in relationship with our innermost self, our soul, our child self. There's like so many relationships happening. And when we branch out to see that, wow, there's all these relationships, I'm in relationship to absolutely everything in life, then the world opens up in a different way. And for me, in my observations, I've seen that a lot of the suffering that we've gone through in our lives, myself included, is from feeling disconnected from relationship. Mostly, I was about to say a German word because I've been speaking German lately. I was about to say hauptsächlich. Mostly because we feel disconnected from our own self and our soul. And so today I want to answer, and episode 2 was all about the biology of fear, the stages of fear that we go through when it activates, and how we can interrupt each stage at any point to redirect and come back home to ourselves. So today I want to bridge that and talk about what does this look like in daily life? And also, why is it so hard for us to change, right? So when our biology meets something new or unknown, its actual first response is always resistance. And if we don't understand that, then we can interpret everything that we feel resistance with. Oh, well, it just doesn't feel like right. It's just not me, or it's just not this, or it's not the right timing, or whatever. And so when we don't understand that our biology, its prime directive is in every room it steps into, in any new action, it's am I safe, am I safe, am I safe? So way back when our survival brain, millions of years ago, was developed to help us survive, our frontal cortex was like just a little pea size. It wasn't very big, right? And as we've evolved, became civilized and built relationships and higher knowing and higher connection to life, our frontal cortex has developed. But it's still not the dominant lead role in our biology. The limbic brain is. And it's so important to just understand that relationship, because the moment that something new hits, if you watch your body, you're going to see you contract, or an unexpected bill comes in. Oh my gosh, I know that one, right? Or a challenge that you didn't expect, or you have a dream you want to bring to life, but you feel like you're constantly kind of sabotaging yourself. You're constantly putting yourself on hold or finding reasons why not. It's not this time. I'm not ready. And all of that is the limbic brain trying to keep you safe. But safety is not where life happens. Life happens when we're alive, and our frontal cortex is developed enough that when our limbic brain activates, our frontal cortex can be the leader and the manager of our experience. Say, okay, oh, I hear you, I see that, but let's look for the pieces that are also evident that this is not really a threat. This isn't a danger. It's just something new. And something new always feels dangerous, always feels uncomfortable, because our survival system is wired for comfort and pleasure and to avoid pain. And pain can have a whole lot of different things going on there. Just the pain of having to, stretch myself to do my first video when I did that. I used to be terrified to go on video. Terrified. And then I was learning with Dean Graciosi at the time, and he put out a challenge. Okay, do 14 days of live video. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, I'll take it on. And then gradually it became easier, right? So we all have dreams. We all have things that move us that we'd like to do more of, maybe spend more time with, more time painting, more time writing, dreams. So almost everybody wants to write a book. And I really think everybody should write a book because it's such an incredible experience. First, from self, to be able to go through all that, like I did with my first book, Resilience, Grace, and the Art of Showing Up. And then also to share the story, because we need each other's stories. And when we read each other's stories, we realize we're not so alone and we're not so different. And we have a lot more in common than we realize. And particularly, we have the limbic system responses in common until we develop that inner muscle to grow and flex our frontal cortex in a moment of stress, right? So like those moments of fear, the moments of fear when, I know I use a lot. I use I use I use right, I use make sense. And these are all the things that the speakers say you shouldn't use, but I think they have a purpose too. I'm not trying to talk at you, I'm talking with you. And as I'm talking with you, I'm thinking and I'm reflecting and there you go. And is actually, if you think of it, it's like Om. It's a frequency. It vibrates in your brain, right? So I think is actually a very sacred sound. But so bear with me. So when we have those fear responses, it shuts everything down. It shuts our creativity down. It shuts our insight down. It shuts our capacity to navigate down. And all we want to do is run and hide and stay away, right? So there was an experience when I was I guess it was in 2005, and I had a producer call me and invite me to play my flute on his CD. And I agreed. I'd never done it, and I'd be playing with artists that I've never played with before. I'd never done that either. It was going to be improvisation. And I was excited about it, but I was scared. And then the day came, and I had a trigger that morning. And at that time, my triggers could really take me down for like days, weeks, months, even depending on which trigger, which emotional pain or vulnerability it hit. And so this trigger happened, and I was like, okay, I can't do this. This is a sign. It's not for me. I can't do it. And I was about to call to cancel. And then I heard an inner voice saying, are you really going to let your traumas rule your life like this continually? Because if you do, you're not going to have a life. You're going to be so isolated, so alone, and you're just going to be cowering in your little corner of the world, and you've got so much goodness to share. Why aren't you, fighting for your dreams? That was the voice that I heard in my mind, like a high self, call it, or angel, I don't know. And then all of a sudden it shook me awake, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's true. This is an amazing opportunity. Who knows if this is going to happen again? So then instead of calling him to cancel, I called a taxi. And that changed my life in such a huge way. So this is my CD. This was released in 2005. And I got to the studio, I was trembling, I was shaking, and he just said, okay, get in your spot and just start playing. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. So I played, and I improvised with another woman. She was singing, she did vocals, so my flute and her vocals were sort of intertwining. On the CD, that song is called Divine Creation. My albums are on Spotify as well. And I was just like on this high adrenaline the whole time. And then at the end, he offered me free studio time to make this CD. And so look at that. And then I made the CD, and then in my performances, and I would sell my CDs because I performed a lot in Vancouver at the time, people would call me or stop me in the lineups at grocery stores, say, oh my God, your music puts my kid to sleep. Or one lady, her cat sleeps to my music every single night. That was the most endearing story. Or they had spontaneous healings and all kinds of stuff, all kinds of goodness that I never imagined, because I started playing the flute for my own healing I played alone for the first 9 years of my life as my own communication to life. And then when I moved to Canada, a First Nation elder invited me into their circle and then found out I played the flute. Says, okay, you're not playing for yourself anymore. You're playing for the people. And then that's how this producer heard about me. So that fear could have froze me. That fear would have blocked so much goodness from myself and from the expression of what life has given me to express. And I believe everybody has something to express, be it, I said last week too, be it just how you interact with somebody at the grocery store. There's goodness to share. We're here to share goodness with each other in whatever way that expresses itself, creatively, artistically, or through the expertise in our work or our way of being with each other. But our frontal brain, if we don't develop it strong enough, the limbic brain will constantly shut down connections to other people and opportunities. And that's why it's so important. And I've spent a lot of time in the personal development industry the last few years, just building my confidence and getting the tools to do the things I'm doing. And what I've witnessed is that there are so many amazing people with amazing gifts, but when they're not able to implement the teachings or the techniques, they give up on themselves. And that makes me really sad, because I know that behind it is just a trauma or a block of some kind that's really just 1/3 of a second of a threshold. That's all it takes to make a change. 1/3 of a second, and our brain will redirect. But that 1/3 of a second, when we're at that threshold, feels like, wow, like it's massive. It feels so huge of a leap that it seems impossible, but it's really just 1/3 of a second shift in our brain to activate a neural blast to start creating a new neural network, right? So the nervous system is always predicting. Even when you see a person's face or you hear somebody's voice or you hear anything, our nervous system is predicting. And if there's any similarity at all to anything that ever harmed us, it's going to say, beam, 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 stay away from that person. Don't go there, or don't do this or whatever. And it's wired to do that. And that's a beautiful thing. But we have to at least understand it so that I can stand at that precipice of that 1/3 of a second threshold and I can investigate. Am I really in a life-threatening danger right now? Or is this just simply the normal, uncomfortable fear of the unknown? And what's on the other side of that? What is my dream? What is my vision? And then we make that step, right? So the nervous system doesn't say, is this good for me? It says, I've survived a lot and I've survived this before, right? And how am I going to survive this? Is this safe, right? And so familiar is safer than unfamiliar feelings and experiences. And for me, that's the key, to know that, because the only way we can actually build a bridge from our limbic brain reactions to our frontal cortex reasoning and broader view capacity is when we exercise it, like going to the gym. I'm not going to get the muscles I want from 2 reps, right? I got to do lots of reps. And right when it hurts the most, that's when it's going to rip and be the most painful. It's the same for our inner muscles of growing and developing our frontal cortex. Everything's going to want to pull us back into what we know. And we have to have that vision that says, no, it's not an option anymore. And this is what I said to myself one day. I said, it's not an option to go down that path anymore. So now whenever a door opens, and I pretty much have done it a lot in my life, but there are periods where I was more afraid, I go through and I do it. And I challenge myself there to stretch beyond the comfort of the known. And now I have more curiosity again. And that's our true state. When you were a kid, when we were kids, we were all curious. We were open. The new was not dangerous. It was exciting, right? The unknown was not dangerous. It was exciting until experiences happened that wired our nervous system differently. But for me, I see that part of us is still there. I call it the authentic self. You can get, or our soul, right? There's that part of us that hasn't been touched by our experiences. And it's up to us to bushwhack through all the patterns and the landmines, clear the landmines, hidden landmines in the earth of our being, and bushwhack our way through the stories, the definitions, the interpretations, the habits, the beliefs that block us from actually experiencing our whole self. So for me in my work, I don't see that people need to become somebody new. I didn't need to become somebody new. I needed to become more me. And I needed to find out, what is that? And fortunately, I had some memories of my original state. So I was always hungry to find it again, right? But we need that motivation to be stronger than the current of comfort that will constantly pull us back into the old patterns and the familiar. And again, it's out of safety, because the limbic brain has a different operating system than our frontal cortex and our soul. And when we can find the languaging between them to bridge them, that makes all the difference in the world. And it doesn't mean I have challenges. Oh my gosh, absolutely. But now there's the pathways in my brain and my biology that I can navigate them with much, much greater grace and much more efficacy than ever before. And that's the whole goal of healing, to integrate for me, is to bring my nervous system into a greater alignment with the whole of me, so that I'm more aligned. And through that alignment, there's more flow in life. But if my mind is thinking one thing, my nervous system is doing another, and my body's doing another, there's disconnection. We need them to connect, to be working together as they were designed to. I believe our body, mind, and soul were designed to work together, but we've been divided in our own self, right? Wherever that happened in history, that's what it is now. We're very divided in ourselves, and then therefore we're also very divided with each other. And when we're designed for belonging, we're designed for unity, we're designed to connect. And so we're living opposite to what our natural frequency is. And one reflection I had many years ago, when I had a beautiful cat, Jeremiah. He was with me for 19 years, and we used to go walk down the road to the beach together. He'd beach comb and I'd play my flute. And one day I was watching him and I was like, wow, he's just like, there's never not a beautiful moment looking at this guy. It's everything, everything is just, there's just a beautiful energy. And then the thought dawned on me, I said, oh yeah, animals and pets, they're not trying to be something they're not. They're 100% coherent in their being. And I was like, wow, that was about, 15 years ago. And I was like, wow, that's really true, right? That's why we love babies. That's why we love animals. That's why we love nature. There's coherency there. And we are so far out of coherency in ourselves, and not as a judgment, just as an understanding, like, wow, yeah, we've inherited centuries of trauma. There's no country on this planet that hasn't inherited trauma of some kind, through ancestry, through wars, through violence, and all of these things that have happened in our ancestors in our life. They shut our creativity down, and they wire the nervous system for survival even more. So that's why it's a big work to rise out of it. And it is rising, because we're rising from the limbic brain to the frontal brain, right? So take a deep breath with that. It's a lot of information. And just reflect on where that might fit for you in this moment. Where might that help you move through something that you're trying to move through? And so there's insight that you might have right now, but also understand that insight isn't enough. Because in the moment of an insight, this was an incredible neurofact that I learned a long time ago. The moment we have that insight of aha, or a dream or a vision to do something, there's a neuroblast, right? And the only way it can grow is if we take immediate action on it. It's the only way. You ever had those thoughts like, oh yeah, I'm going to write that down, and you didn't write it down? You're like, what was it? And you were certain you were going to remember it because it was such an impactful thought or feeling or idea, but then you couldn't remember it anymore. It's because we need to take action right away. With every action we take on the things we want to create or do or be, then we start building a neural network, and then it creates a new pathway. So we can understand what needs to change. We can be generally wanting something to be different, but our body will go the opposite direction, because the nervous system learns through experience and not information alone. That's why insight is not enough. We need to take actions, right? So like that day, I took action. I went and I played the flute, and it opened up a whole new world for me. And I remember when I went to go to the producers to work on my album, and he was playing music outside, and I rode my bike in there, and I'm like, wow, that's really beautiful music. It turned out it was me. I hadn't heard myself. I'm like, oh my gosh. I said, who's that flute player? He says, it's you, Luana. I'm like, oh my goodness. Right. So that also learning to see myself and my capacity, that because I just play because it's my heart and my soul. I never learned music. It's just I was self-taught through my trauma. It became my voice of prayer and my response at the same time. So if I didn't make those steps to even pick up the flute too, because I thought I used to have a belief I'm not musical at all, but I was inspired by somebody else and I bought a $5 flute. And then look at, we never know the small changes, sliding door moments, right? And it just takes action. I heard the flute and I bought a flute. That was my action that started a new pathway, right? So take a deep breath. So when you hear what I'm sharing, I invite you to put it to use in your life. When you feel it right away, like if you feel a trigger, you feel a fear, you feel anxiety, just take some deep breaths with it and sit with it and ask yourself, what's happening here? Is, if you're afraid, am I really afraid? Or is this just a belief or a pattern that's been running me silently? Because biologically, we're only born with two innate fears: the fear of falling and the fear of a cracking sound, which could be like a lion in the woods. Those are our only biological fears. And I found that out. I'm like, wow, that's incredible. Everything else is learned and fed and fabricated and amplified, which is why when an emotion only lasts, a natural emotion is only 90 seconds. That's why if we keep repeating the emotions in our mind through the story, then that emotion just keeps repeating another 90 seconds, another 90 seconds, another 90 seconds. So these are all, for me, power insights to bring into life right away to navigate if you want change, right? So take a deep breath. Repetition strengthens the new pathways, and action gives the brain evidence too, because then you start seeing, oh, like my evidence when I went and I played the flute, oh, I was able to play with other people. It worked. It turned out good. So later, when I was approached by a producer of a program called Anu, of 3 nights of 25 musicians, pure improv, I was terrified. But then I saw I had evidence that said, well, I did that, so that means I can do this. And this is how we got to work with ourselves. We've got to cultivate the evidence towards our capacity, right? Believe in our possibilities rather than just defending our limitations, which is what we tend to do because our limbic brain is trying to keep us safe. So take a deep breath with that. The brain doesn't change because we understand something. It changes because we repeatedly experience something new that rewires it and connects everything. So one more little experience I want to share happened to me this week. So I had this inspiration for a new CD, but an affirmation CD, where I use my writings, because I have lots of articles and books and, and quotes and things like that. And I thought, wow, what if I, create songs for myself, even for helping to rewire some of my patterns, right? Affirmations, the things that I know that I'm still working on. And let's see how that works. And I did. And I made a few songs. I'm like, wow, this is really beautiful. And then the thought came to me, wow, maybe I could, because I know most people have the same things going on underneath the surface. I thought maybe I can create an album and launch it on CD Baby. And so I created an album in this last little while of affirmation songs, all originally for me. And then it's expanding to be for other people. Again, like the flute was for me first, and then this is expanding. And so I had to learn how to work with the studio, the GarageBand studio. And I can tell you, when I was in front of it, my brain was like, how am I going to do this? And even though my mind knew I'll figure it out, my body started panicking and I could feel it contracting. I'm like, wow, this is incredible. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep doing and, step by step by step. And, it was phenomenal to watch my body transition as the new neural network formed. I really felt it in real time because I have now enough of a frontal cortex that my limbic brain doesn't take me off the rails anymore. So I observed it, and I was able to get one track done. I'm like, oh my God, it took like over an hour and a half to get that first track done. and then, okay, then I did it. And then I had evidence I could do it. And then I did the next one, and it took like half the time. And then I did the next one, and then 3/4 of the time. And then now I can just pop in, bop, 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 dump, 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 and it's done. So I watched in real time how the neural networks develop. But had I succumbed into the panic and the fear of, oh, maybe I can't do this, or this is too difficult, I don't have a tech brain, these are my stories that I've told myself, I don't have a tech brain, I can't do this, or, oh, it's impossible, or, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow because I just feel too stressed right now, right? If I would have done that, I wouldn't have a CD that's launching this week on CD Baby. So with that, I want to share that the creations you want to bring into life, whatever they are, they're not just going to happen because you want to create them. And the dream may be huge and real, but without those repeated actions towards it of overriding the false cues of the nervous system that you're not safe, because those are false cues in those moments, but the nervous system doesn't know the difference between a lion that's about to attack you and a fear of doing something. It's the same emotional chemical pathway. So we have to become our own guru, our own guide, our own authority in our trinity of self, the body, mind, soul. We have to, with our frontal cortex, decide, no, this isn't going to happen anymore. I'm going to rewire. And if I fall into a pattern, I'm getting back up. And if I fall in, I'm going to get back up. And then that repetition creates, again, more evidence. I can do this. And then it means, oh, I'm doing it. And then we start to create our experience in our life the way we long to live. And it doesn't remove challenges. They'll always be there. But if we can navigate those challenges better, then that means we can have a better quality of life. But if our nervous system is constantly draining us and triggering us, and we're isolating tighter and tighter and tighter in our story, narrowing our narrative more and more, then that leads to less quality of life and leads to more suffering. These are my observations. So take a deep breath. I'm just going to invite you to tune into your body and see what resonated from what I've shared today. And it's a lot, but and this is all my signature stuff that I share with my clients, but I want to share it here because it's needed, right? So it's needed. I'm not attached to it. The knowledge is not mine. I've tapped into it and I've learned to express it in my unique way, but the knowledge is universal. So take a deep breath. And tune into where do you have that trigger point of, I can't do this, I'm not ready. Or the force, I want it done now, but that also doesn't work because that's also creates a stress in the nervous system, right? I was like that with the CD. I want to get it done now. And that had added to my fear biology, right? So watching my fear biology shift the more that I breathe. So that's what I did. I practiced everything I do. I missed that piece. So what I did is I breathed and I just witnessed and I watched and I observed what was going on in my body. And I just kept learning until I was able to get it. And now it's like second nature to me already, which is pretty cool, right? So you can do anything that you really set your heart and your mind and your soul to. And when you get them to work together on it, it's just a matter of coming together. And that's where the healing is. Healing as in integration of self, integration of experience, so that you're free to be and to create the life that you want to live. And I'm not meaning as in this fantasy fairy tale, just foundationally a life that's still going to be full of duality and paradox, but with more joy, more happiness, more capacity, more confidence, more self-reliance and self-authority. And this is what we're missing so much in our society here. This is what I see anyways. It's what I was missing for a long time too, right? So take a deep breath. And I'm going to invite you, this week to think about this. And whenever you're feeling that fire of stress, slow down, take a deep breath. And just think, what's the next step? What's the next step? What's the next step? Walk like that. Not trying to rush to the other side of the chasm of between where you are now and where you want to be, because this is when we fall, we collapse, and we have to climb back up like Mario in the video game, and then we have to keep going, keep trying again and again and again. But the trick is to just do step by step and let that be enough, and to hold space for yourself and keep safety for yourself through the knowledge of understanding your survival brain, because then your survival brain is going to start to trust you. It's like your inner child will start to trust your adult self, because the unconscious patterns we have were formed predominantly in our childhood, right? And that's why they call the unconscious mind the inner child, because that's when those hard drive beliefs and stories about ourselves, I'm not enough, I'm not lovable, something's wrong with me, all of these different stories that we all have. Nobody talks about it, but we have it. We're so busy trying to project who we want to believe we are, and we know we are really in the inside too. But when we ignore that other part of us that's fragile and vulnerable, and that's the other reason why it's so hard to change, because we don't want to be vulnerable. Vulnerability doesn't feel safe. But vulnerability is the only place that life is really happening. That's where the party is. That's where life is expanding. That's what gives us the aliveness, is the vulnerability. So maybe next week's segment, I'll go into vulnerability a little bit there, because that's really where the juice of life happens in us. Right? So, instead of waiting to feel confident before acting, do something this week, right? Create the evidence that you're capable. Evidence builds safety. And safety updates the search engine of our nervous system, right? So that we expand through our experiences of pain, trauma, contrast, loss, all of these things. We can expand through that and become more of who we are rather than less of who we are. And the propensity in our world is to become less, to narrow. And my invitation is to expand beyond what you think you know, and to realize that nobody on planet Earth knows everything there is to know, including you, including me. And so that's why I have a perpetual student's mind. I'm always learning. I love learning. I'm always willing to catch into the next layers and levels, even if they're uncomfortable. But that took a long time to get where I am now, but it is possible. I went from lots of anxiety and paranoia and fear and emotional triggers that would cripple me for days, weeks, or months, to who I am now. And that was the step by step process. So I'm here as a visual living example of it is possible, but it takes effort. And our effort is our love in action, to be uncomfortable, to push beyond the resistance of the new, the trigger of the nervous system that says that's dangerous just because it's new or unknown, to move beyond that, be the explorer and adventurer, the architect of your own life, and see just how much beauty and power is in you to be able to do that. So the key points I wanted to bring through here today were that our authentic self is still intact. Our child self is still intact, that pureness, that joy, the curiosity. So we want to just release the layers that are holding that natural essence. And we experience that essence in pockets here and there with the person that lights us up, or when we go to a concert, or when we see something that we love, that inner child comes up. And in those moments, you feel perfect, you feel fine, you feel happy, you're totally connected. But then the other stuff of life comes in, and then that part retreats again. So the whole purpose for me of healing and growing and learning is so that my child self can be actually, more of a leader in my life in terms of the curiosity and openness to discover. And that's how I lead my life, and how I invite my clients to as well. When I'm working with my clients here at the retreat center, and it works, they leave completely transformed. And it doesn't take a lot of time. We don't need to delve into the story so much. We want to look at the nervous system and find how can we shift the nervous system when the things come up. And then that's already creating a new pathway. Because sometimes dwelling on the story too much, too long, just keeps anchoring it. It keeps getting deeper into our hard drive. We're wanting to acknowledge it, see it, sit with it, glean the beauty and the teachings from it and the insights, but then we're wanting to evolve it into new action and new creation and new creativity, right? So healing reconciles what interrupted our natural expression. There was a movie with Angelina Jolie, Girl Interrupted. I saw that many years ago. It's a very good example of the interruptions of trauma. And so we get interrupted. For me, trauma is not, it's not just the extreme things that happen. It's any moment in our life that interrupted our true authentic nature feeling safe to be itself. And modern science, like I'm trained with the heart math method, and they've also discovered the same, that it's not always the situation that happened, it's the impact that leaves its residue in our nervous system. We can go through something really hard, but if there's enough love and understanding around that experience to help us move through it, it won't impact our nervous system the same way. But if we experience something extreme and there's no help, no support, no idea of how to navigate it, that's when it anchors and hardwires into our system more. So we've all had experiences where, we were alone in what we were going through. And especially as children, we don't have enough knowledge to understand the experiences we're having. And so what we do is we turn everything on ourselves. It's my fault, something wrong with me. I'm not enough. I'm not lovable. Those were all huge for me, right? And each layer that I grow and evolve, I meet new layers of that self, because that's always the part that holds us back. And it's holding us back because it needs to be seen and it needs to be loved. It needs to be witnessed, so that part of us can grow and evolve. So take a deep breath with all that. And for the SoulSpective for this week, look for where there's something unfamiliar. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, something that you feel drawn to, but you're afraid to, or an action. Maybe you're an entrepreneur and you feel stuck at a certain level of your expression of that in the world. Maybe you're somebody who's wanted to paint and never picked up a brush in your life, but you always had that kind of a feeling, I wish I could paint or dance or play an instrument or whatever that could be. Something that lights you up, that your body really is craving to do more of, but there may be a resistance because of the unknown, or not wanting to be seen as somebody doing something new or having a mistake or anything like that. And I invite you this week to tune in to what lights you up and what's in the way of living more fully that which lights you up, and what actions can you take so that you can start to fan that inner flame inside of you that is the life that you're here to live with your authentic self, to grow and to heal into that more fully. Because life is alive. We only ever have this moment. A second from now didn't exist. I'm in it now, but now it doesn't. Time, the future and the past don't exist in this moment, and yet they are simultaneously integrated into our being. But the moment we have power to change is now. I can't change my past, but I can change my perception and my relationship to it in a way that helps me to move forward and grow. And I can't create my future through anxiety, but I can make steps today to build what I want to build. So now is your moment. How will you use this moment of now and every other moment of now to love yourself more deeply, to nourish yourself, to repeat and go deeper into the actions that bring you alive and make you feel so good that you just can't wait to wake up for another day, like when you were a child. And with that, I'm going to complete today's podcast. And as always, stay curious, stay compassionate, and stay connected to yourself. And I look forward to my next show next week, which I think will be vulnerability, since that I was only able to touch into that vulnerability as your superpower. All right. Thank you so much. Bless your week and lots of love. Thank you.
Step into your power, feel it rise. No more hiding, no more compromise. You're the light, you're the spark, burning bright. This is your moment, this is your life.